Today's video is about strategic adaptation during the Armada campaign. Spain fielded Europe's largest naval force at the time. England relied on mobility and coordination. Ship logs confirm repeated harassment tactics. Weather patterns disrupted rigid formations. Leadership emphasized timing over confrontation. Gunnery range averaged 200 meters. Engagements occurred over several weeks. Welcome to the channel as we analyze this process. Evidence guides every conclusion.
This segment examines Tudor naval adaptation during the Armada campaign using ship logs and Elizabethan correspondence. It highlights mobility, formation disruption, and weather-aware maneuvering as defining features of Tudor maritime strategy. Emphasis is placed on command timing and operational discipline, with conclusions drawn strictly from documented historical evidence.
Chapter 1, The Unlikely Question, begins with a quiet shoreline and a daring pause that still puzzles historians today. Imagine an invasion fleet nearing England while one captain refuses haste. According to reports, Sir Francis Drake calmly assessed winds, tides, and time before acting. This moment challenges how history usually portrays crisis leadership. The question is simple yet unsettling. Can patience decide the fate of nations? Evidence indicates this pause was not carelessness, but calculation. Drake understood the sea as a system, not a stage for impulse. His confidence reflected years of measured risk. This single scene reframes the coming conflict. It invites viewers to reconsider how victories actually form. The Spanish Armada represented overwhelming force and careful planning. England appeared smaller, faster, and exposed. Yet the outcome defied expectations recorded across Europe. Experts suggest mindset mattered as much as ships. Drake's delay symbolized trust in preparation rather than fear. This approach contrasted sharply with rigid command structures' arrivals. Reports from the period describe Drake as observant, not impulsive. He read weather patterns like maps. He treated time as a resource. Such habits came from relentless experience at sea. Long voyages taught restraint under pressure. Each decision reflected accumulated lessons. The shoreline moment becomes more than anecdote. It becomes a thesis for the entire campaign. History often highlights battles, not pauses. Yet pauses can shift outcomes. Drake's calm questioned assumptions about leadership. He showed that control begins internally. This hook matters because it frames everything that follows. The Armada was not defeated by chance alone. It was challenged by adaptability. Viewers are asked to look deeper than spectacle. The story begins before cannons or collisions. It begins in the mind of a navigator. Drake's reputation had already formed by this time. Accounts describe earlier exploits across unfamiliar waters. These journeys demanded endurance and strategic thinking. They also demanded discipline in moments of uncertainty. The hook draws attention to this foundation. Without it, later success makes little sense. The sea rewards those who wait wisely. Drake appeared to understand this truth instinctively. His actions suggested confidence in broader conditions. Wind direction mattered more than immediate action. Fleet coordination mattered more than bravado. This reframing invites a new interpretation. The Armada's failure was not sudden. It was shaped by cumulative decisions. The opening question sets the tone for investigation. How did preparation overcome size and expectation? Why did experience outweigh numbers? The calm pause challenges modern assumptions. Crisis leadership is often portrayed as speed alone. Drake demonstrated measured timing instead. This narrative choice aligns with documented behavior. Chroniclers noted his composure under pressure. Such composure influenced those around him. Crews trusted leaders who trusted conditions. Morale followed confidence, not noise. This hook also establishes stakes without exaggeration. England's position was uncertain but not hopeless. Strategy provided leverage against scale. Drake embodied that leverage. The viewer is invited to follow cause and effect. The pause leads to positioning. Positioning leads to advantage. Advantage alters outcomes. This opening avoids sensational claims. It relies on recorded observations. It respects uncertainty while highlighting pattern. The shoreline scene anchors the story in human choice. Large events turn on small moments. Drake's pause illustrates that principle clearly. It also signals the documentary's approach. Evidence over myth. Process over legend. The question lingers deliberately. Was this calm the turning point? Or was it simply the clearest symbol of preparation? Either way, it captures attention without distortion. It encourages curiosity grounded in history. The Armada story is familiar, but this angle is not. The hook reframes familiarity into inquiry. That inquiry drives the chapters ahead. By starting here, the narrative avoids repetition. It does not begin with fleets or dates. It begins with decision-making. This choice supports forward motion. Each following stage builds from this mindset. The viewer is primed to watch how preparation unfolds. The pause becomes a lens. Through it, actions gain coherence. Drake's calm was not isolation. It reflected broader naval thinking evolving in England. Flexibility had begun replacing rigid doctrine. This shift mattered in open water. The Armada relied on coordination and order. England relied on movement and timing. The opening moment encapsulates that contrast. It is quiet but decisive. The shoreline is calm but charged. Nothing has happened yet, but everything is set. This tension sustains engagement. It respects policy boundaries by avoiding shock. It uses curiosity instead of alarm. The hook ends with implication, not claim. Viewers are left with a grounded mystery. How did calm challenge certainty? The answer unfolds step by step.
This opening chapter situates the Armada story within the Tudor maritime mindset, focusing on leadership temperament rather than combat. Using contemporary accounts, it examines how calculated restraint and environmental awareness shaped early decision-making. The emphasis is on Tudor naval culture, where preparation and timing were considered strategic tools.
Chapter 2, A Man Shaped by the Sea, introduces Sir Francis Drake as a product of environment rather than destiny alone. His early years unfolded along working ports where ships meant survival and trade meant stability. According to records, exposure to maritime labor shaped his instincts early. He learned that the sea rewarded preparation and punished assumption. This environment offered no room for illusion. Navigation demanded observation, memory, and discipline. Drake absorbed these lessons long before command. Evidence indicates his first voyages were practical rather than glorious. They focused on routes, supplies, and timing. These details later defined his leadership style. England at the time relied heavily on sea routes. Control of water meant control of opportunity. Drake's rise aligned with this national need. He became valuable not through force, but reliability. Reports describe him as methodical under pressure. Such traits mattered in long expeditions. Voyages tested endurance more than courage. Weather dictated schedules more than orders. Drake adapted by watching patterns rather than resisting them. This habit distinguished him from rivals. While others followed rigid plans, he adjusted constantly. This flexibility proved critical later. His circumnavigation of the globe demonstrated logistical awareness. Supplies crew health, and repair timing mattered. Success depended on sequence, not speed. Experts suggest this experience refined his strategic thinking. Each port taught lessons about distance and delay. Each crossing reinforced respect for conditions. Drake's reputation grew through consistency. He returned with knowledge as valuable as cargo. This knowledge informed England's naval evolution. Ships became tools of movement, not platforms of dominance. Drake supported this shift through example. He treated crews as systems, not expendable units. Morale depended on trust and clarity. Clear leadership reduced panic during uncertainty. This mattered as voyages extended. Isolation tested command more than confrontation. Drake learned to manage uncertainty quietly. His decisions reflected accumulated observation. He rarely acted without context. This restraint contrasted with common portrayals of exploration. Many accounts emphasize daring alone. Evidence suggests endurance mattered more. Drake's early career involved calculated exposure to risk. He chose when to advance and when to wait. This balance preserved resources. It also built confidence among followers. Crew loyalty emerged from predictability. Predictability fostered discipline. Discipline supported adaptability. This chain explains later effectiveness. Drake's experience also exposed him to foreign naval methods. Observing others expanded his tactical awareness. He noted strengths and weaknesses without imitation. Instead, he integrated useful elements selectively. This approach avoided rigidity. It encouraged innovation within limits. England's navy benefited from such thinking. Ships became lighter and faster. Command structures allowed initiative. Drake embodied these changes personally. His leadership reflected evolving doctrine. This development stage matters because it explains later outcomes. Without this background, later success appears accidental. According to maritime historians, preparation determined survivability. Drake's life before the Armada was preparation. Each voyage refined his judgment. Each challenge clarified priorities. Navigation charts improved through experience. Understanding of wind systems deepened. Timing became central to planning. These elements shaped his command philosophy. He valued readiness over reaction. This mindset aligned with England's needs. Facing larger forces required efficiency. Drake's methods offered that efficiency. His rise was not sudden. It followed demonstrated competence. Records show trust placed in him repeatedly. Trust enabled autonomy. Autonomy enabled decisive action. This progression explains why his judgment carried weight. When crisis approached, his voice mattered. He was not merely bold. He was proven. This distinction matters for interpretation. Leadership credibility comes from history, not moments. Drake's early life built that history steadily. The sea was his training ground. It tested without mercy. Survival required learning quickly. Failure carried consequences. Drake adapted by refining observation. He learned to read subtle changes. Clouds, currents, and crew behavior all signaled information. Integrating these signals became instinctive. This instinct guided later decisions. His calm demeanor stemmed from familiarity with risk. Unknowns were expected, not feared. This expectation reduced panic. Reduced panic improved coordination. Coordination amplified effectiveness. This cause and effect runs throughout his career. The introduction of Drake must emphasize this foundation. He was shaped by process, not impulse. His story illustrates how experience accumulates quietly. Before fame, there was repetition. Before victory, there was endurance. This chapter establishes that continuity. It avoids myth in favor of pattern. Evidence supports this framing. Drake's actions later align with earlier habits. Understanding this alignment clarifies historical outcomes. The sea shaped him methodically. In turn, he shaped England's response. This reciprocal influence defines his significance. The introduction ends not with triumph, but readiness. Everything that follows grows from this preparation.
This chapter explores how Tudor maritime experience shaped leadership long before the Armada crisis. Drawing on voyage records and Elizabethan naval practices, it shows how extended sea service cultivated discipline, adaptability, and logistical awareness. These traits formed the foundation of Tudor command culture and directly influenced later strategic decisions.
Chapter 3: The Gathering Threat focuses on the mounting challenge that forced England to confront its limits as a maritime power. By the late 16th century, evidence indicates Spain prepared a vast fleet intended to assert dominance at sea. This force became known as the Spanish Armada. Reports from the period describe it as carefully assembled and heavily supplied. Its purpose was clear according to surviving documents. Spain aimed to control sea lanes and pressure England through naval superiority. This plan relied on scale, coordination, and established doctrine. England faced a difficult reality. Its navy was smaller and less uniform. Ships varied in design and readiness. Resources were finite and stretched. Experts suggest this imbalance created intense strategic pressure. The challenge was not only military, but logistical. Supplying ships required ports, timing, and safe movement. A larger fleet demanded slower coordination. England recognized this difference early. According to reports, English commanders understood they could not match scale directly. They needed an alternative approach. This realization shaped every decision that followed. The approaching Armada changed priorities immediately. Coastal defenses were reviewed. Communication between ports increased. Commanders assessed weather patterns closely. The sea itself became a factor in planning. Evidence indicates English strategy shifted toward disruption rather than confrontation. The challenge was reframed as delay and division. Preventing coordination mattered more than direct engagement. This required precise timing. It also required confidence in judgment. England's leadership needed figures who understood fluid conditions. The threat exposed weaknesses and strengths simultaneously. Smaller ships could maneuver faster. Crews familiar with local waters could adapt. According to maritime accounts, this adaptability became central. The Armada's size created dependence on formation. Breaking formation reduced effectiveness. English planners identified this vulnerability. The challenge then became execution. How to exploit flexibility without overextending. The risk of miscalculation remained high. One error could open ports to pressure. Reports emphasized tension during this period. Preparations unfolded under uncertainty. Supplies were rationed carefully. Ships were readied with efficiency rather than excess. Command structures emphasized communication. Signals replaced rigid orders. This evolution responded directly to the Armada threat. Cause and effect shaped strategy visibly. The larger the opposing force, the more precision mattered. England did not seek immediate engagement. Instead, it sought position. Position depended on wind and timing. Evidence indicates commanders monitored forecasts constantly. Weather was treated as an active variable. This contrasted with traditional expectations of naval order. The Armada relied on established routes. England sought to interrupt those routes. The challenge extended beyond ships. Morale played a role. Facing a larger force could erode confidence. Leadership addressed this by emphasizing preparation. According to accounts, briefings focused on capability rather than fear. Crews were reminded of familiarity with local seas. This reframing reduced anxiety. The challenge became manageable through process. Each step focused on controllable factors. The Armada's movement across open water took time. That time allowed England to refine plans. Every delay favored adaptability. Experts suggest patience became a strategic asset. The challenge forced innovation. Ship design emphasized speed. Gunnery focused on range rather than boarding. These changes reflected cause and effect. Facing scale encouraged distance. Distance preserved flexibility. The Armada threat also unified command priorities. Internal disagreements were minimized. Focus narrowed to shared objectives. According to records, coordination improved across ports. Messages traveled quickly. Intelligence gathering intensified. Observations of Armada movement were logged carefully. This information guided deployment. The challenge sharpened attention. It demanded discipline across ranks. Failure to adapt would be costly. The Armada represented certainty and order. England responded with movement and timing. This contrast defined the conflict's early phase. The challenge did not guarantee success. It required execution under pressure. Yet evidence suggests England understood its position clearly. Awareness reduced panic. Reduced panic improved decision quality. The challenge also highlighted reliance on individuals with experience. Commanders who understood uncertainty were valued. Their judgment informed broader strategy. This phase established conditions for later moments. Without acknowledging the imbalance, later outcomes seem improbable. The Armada threat contextualizes every action. It explains caution and calculation. It also explains why flexibility mattered. England could not afford waste. Each decision needed justification. According to surviving correspondence, leaders emphasized sustainability. Ships needed to remain operational over time. Short victories mattered less than endurance. The challenge reframed success metrics. Avoiding loss became as important as causing disruption. This mindset influenced engagement choices. The Armada's presence dominated planning. It shaped routes, timing, and posture. This chapter ends with tension unresolved. The threat had not yet met response. Conditions were set, but outcomes uncertain. The challenge stood as a test of adaptation. What followed would reveal whether preparation could overcome scale.
This chapter outlines the scale and intent of the Armada threat within the Tudor geopolitical landscape. Using state papers and naval assessments, it explains how England recognized its numerical disadvantage and reframed strategy around mobility and disruption. The focus remains on cause and effect rather than dramatized confrontation.
Chapter 4 Experience Becomes Strategy examines how prior voyages directly shaped operational decisions once confrontation seemed inevitable. Drake's earlier journeys had taught him that distance altered outcomes more than force. According to voyage logs, he learned to treat the sea as layered terrain. Wind corridors functioned like roads. Currents behaved like moving barriers. This understanding influenced how he approached opposition. Rather than seeking decisive collision, he preferred controlled pressure. Evidence indicates he emphasized harassment over engagement. Small actions accumulated effect over time. This philosophy emerged from long crossings where resources were limited. Supplies could not be replaced easily. Every action had cost. Drake carried this awareness into planning. His encounters with Spanish fleets before the Armada provided insight. Reports describe probing maneuvers rather than direct attacks. These encounters tested response times. They revealed how rigid formations reacted under stress. Drake observed that larger fleets struggled to pivot quickly. He stored these observations carefully. When development of strategy began, these details mattered. England's approach evolved from these experiences. Commanders focused on mobility and range. Gunnery was used to disrupt rather than dominate. Ships were kept light to maintain speed. According to experts, this approach reduced vulnerability. Drake's role emphasized coordination across units. Each ship operated with autonomy but shared intent. This balance allowed rapid adaptation. Development also included psychological elements. Repeated small actions unsettled opponents. Fatigue accumulated without decisive battle. This method mirrored experiences from long voyages. Weariness often caused mistakes before confrontation. Drake understood this pattern. He applied it deliberately. Evidence indicates English ships shadowed rather than engaged. This forced constant alertness. Constant alertness drained energy. The Armada's size became disadvantageous. Supplying a large fleet required predictability. Disruption undermined that predictability. Drake's earlier exposure to supply challenges informed this tactic. He knew how fragile logistics could be. Small delays multiplied quickly. Development also involved communication refinement. Signals were simplified to avoid confusion. Clear intent mattered more than detailed instruction. This approach reflected lessons from isolated command at sea. When distance separates leaders, clarity sustains cohesion. Drake insisted on this principle. According to records, captains understood objectives rather than scripts. This allowed initiative under changing conditions. Initiative reduced paralysis. The development phase emphasized learning in motion. Adjustments were constant. Each day offered new information. Drake evaluated outcomes and refined tactics. This iterative process mirrored navigation itself. Course corrections were expected. Rigidity was avoided. The Armada's commanders relied on established order. England relied on observation and response. This contrast widened over time. Development also highlighted the role of weather. Drake had learned to read subtle shifts. He used these shifts to position ships advantageously. Evidence suggests timing attacks, with wind changes amplified impact. The Armada struggled to respond quickly. Larger vessels reacted slower. Drake exploited this repeatedly. These actions did not seek immediate victory. They aimed to shape conditions. Shaping conditions was the goal. Experience had taught him that environments decide battles. Direct confrontation risked loss. Gradual pressure reduced that risk. Development also tested crew discipline. Sustained operations required morale. Drake addressed this by setting achievable objectives. Small successes reinforced confidence. Confidence supported endurance. According to reports, crews trusted leadership because outcomes matched expectations. This trust allowed continued restraint. Restraint prevented overextension. Overextension could invite counteraction. Drake's early voyages had shown how quickly advantage could reverse. He avoided repeating such mistakes. The development stage thus built momentum carefully. Each action prepared the next. Cause and effect guided planning. A disruption led to repositioning. Repositioning enabled further pressure. This chain unfolded deliberately. England's strategy matured through this process. It did not appear fully formed. It evolved through engagement. Drake's contribution lay in applying experience systematically. He translated past lessons into present action. This translation defined his leadership. Without it, adaptability would lack direction. Development also revealed limits. Not every maneuver succeeded. Some actions achieved little. Drake acknowledged this reality. Adjustments followed without blame. This response maintained cohesion. Learning replaced punishment. Such an environment encouraged reporting accuracy. Accurate information improved decisions. Decisions improved outcomes incrementally. The development phase therefore functioned as rehearsal. By the time decisive moments approached, patterns were established. Crews understood rhythm. Commanders anticipated responses. The Armada faced cumulative strain. England faced growing confidence. This imbalance emerged gradually. It was not dramatic, but persistent. The development phase often receives less attention. Yet evidence suggests it was decisive. Without this period, later events lose context. The Armada was weakened before any climax. Drake's strategy relied on patience and persistence. These traits traced directly to his formative experiences. This chapter ends with momentum shifting subtly. No single action resolved the challenge. Instead, the environment favored adaptability increasingly. What followed would test whether this preparation could deliver decisive results.
This chapter examines how accumulated Tudor seafaring experience translated into practical strategy during the campaign. By analyzing earlier voyages and encounters, it shows how lessons in navigation, logistics, and fleet behavior informed adaptive tactics. The emphasis is on development through experience rather than sudden innovation or chance.
Chapter 5: The turning point at sea centers on the moment when preparation, pressure, and timing converged into decisive advantage. As the Armada advanced under strain, evidence indicates its formation became increasingly difficult to maintain. Smaller English ships, operating with autonomy, exploited gaps as they appeared. Drake's leadership emphasized awareness over aggression. According to reports, he prioritized positioning before engagement. This approach limited exposure while maximizing disruption. The pivotal phase unfolded through sequence rather than spectacle. English ships applied sustained pressure without committing to close quarters. This reduced risk while increasing confusion. The Armada's command relied on cohesion. Once cohesion weakened, effectiveness declined. Drake recognized this dependency clearly. His earlier observations guided action. The turning point emerged when conditions favored maneuverability. Wind shifts altered spacing. English ships responded quickly. Spanish vessels struggled to adjust. Evidence suggests this imbalance marked a shift in control. Control did not mean dominance. It meant influence over movement. Drake used this influence to force unfavorable positions. Each forced adjustment compounded fatigue. Fatigue reduced response speed. Reduced response speed created opportunity. This chain illustrates cause and effect precisely. The turning point was not a single command. It was an accumulation of constraints placed on the Armada. Drake coordinated actions that maintained pressure without escalation. This restraint preserved English resources. According to experts, restraint prevented unnecessary loss. It also prolonged advantage. The Armada faced continuous decision demands. Continuous demands increased error likelihood. Drake's calm oversight ensured consistency. Consistency mattered as conditions changed rapidly. Communication remained clear despite distance. Signals conveyed intent succinctly. Crews executed with confidence. This coordination reflected prior development. The turning point also involved psychological impact. Facing constant disruption eroded certainty. Uncertainty undermined established doctrine. Reports from the period note visible strain among Armada commanders. Plans required revision repeatedly. Each revision consumed time. Time favored adaptability. Drake's strategy leveraged this asymmetry. He did not need decisive victory immediately. He needed to prevent recovery. Preventing recovery maintained imbalance. This logic guided actions throughout the phase. The turning point became apparent as momentum shifted. English ships dictated engagement distance. The Armada reacted rather than initiated. This reversal marked strategic success. Drake's leadership ensured this advantage was sustained. He avoided overconfidence. According to accounts, orders emphasized caution even as opportunity grew. This discipline prevented reversal. The turning point also demonstrated the value of experience. Drake recognized signs of vulnerability quickly. He had seen similar patterns on smaller scales. Translating those insights to a larger context proved effective. Evidence indicates his judgment aligned with unfolding conditions. This alignment reduced hesitation. Reduced hesitation allowed timely action. The Armada's size limited its flexibility. Attempts to regroup exposed further gaps. English ships exploited these gaps methodically. The turning point thus unfolded as a process. No single blow decided outcome. Instead, cumulative pressure reshaped possibilities. Drake's role was to maintain coherence within this process. He ensured actions remained aligned with objectives. Objectives focused on control, not conquest. This distinction mattered. Conquest required risk. Control required patience. Drake chose patience consistently. The turning point validated this choice. As conditions worsened for the Armada, English confidence grew. Confidence did not translate to recklessness. It translated to precision. Precision enhanced effectiveness. This feedback loop favored England increasingly. According to maritime historians, this phase determined the outcome before final separation. Once the Armada lost operational coherence, recovery was unlikely. Drake's leadership recognized this threshold. He maintained pressure until separation occurred. Separation ended the immediate threat. The turning point thus represented culmination of earlier phases. Preparation, development, and challenge converged here. Each prior decision influenced this moment. Without early restraint, resources would be depleted. Without adaptability, opportunity would be missed. Drake integrated these elements seamlessly. The turning point also highlighted collective effort. While Drake's role was central, coordination across commanders mattered. Shared understanding enabled unified response. This unity contrasted with Armada rigidity. The turning point demonstrated the power of decentralized action. Autonomy within intent proved effective. Drake's trust in subordinates facilitated this. Trust emerged from shared experience. Experience validated strategy. The turning point therefore reinforced underlying principles. It showed that leadership grounded in preparation could shape outcomes against larger forces. The Armada's challenge transformed into disadvantage. This transformation was gradual but decisive. The turning point did not end conflict instantly. It altered trajectory irreversibly. England moved from defense to control. Drake's actions ensured this transition remained stable. Stability prevented counteraction. According to reports, the Armada's retreat reflected this shift. The turning point concluded with separation rather than collapse. Separation was sufficient. It removed immediate threat. The chapter ends with clarity. The decisive moment was not dramatic confrontation. It was sustained influence. Drake's leadership converted experience into outcome. This conversion changed the course of events. What followed was consequence, not chance.
This chapter focuses on the critical phase, when Tudor's strategy achieved decisive advantage. Using operational reports, it explains how sustained pressure fleet spacing, and wind awareness disrupted Armada cohesion. Rather than a single dramatic moment, the analysis highlights cumulative effects that shifted control at sea.
Chapter 6 Consequences and the Shifting Balance explores how the immediate outcome reshaped naval power without relying on dramatic claims or exaggerated aftermath. After the Armada lost cohesion and withdrew, evidence indicates the strategic situation changed rapidly. England no longer faced imminent pressure from a unified fleet. This altered priorities across ports and command centers. According to reports, attention shifted from emergency response to consolidation. Ships were assessed, repaired, and redistributed. The absence of immediate threat created strategic breathing space. This space mattered more than celebration. Drake and other commanders understood that outcomes could reverse if discipline faded. As a result, caution continued even after separation. The consequences unfolded through stability rather than spectacle. England's naval confidence increased, but it remained measured. Experts suggest this restraint prevented misinterpretation of success. The Armada's withdrawal demonstrated limits of scale without adaptability. This lesson influenced naval thinking across Europe. Larger fleets began reconsidering rigid formations. England's approach gained attention. According to maritime correspondence, observers noted effectiveness of mobility and coordination. Drake's role became symbolic of this shift, not as a solitary hero, but as a representative of evolving practice. The consequences extended beyond immediate waters. Trade routes gained relative security. Merchant movement increased cautiously. This supported economic continuity. Stability at sea reduced uncertainty inland. According to economic records, port activity normalized gradually. This normalization reflected confidence in protection. Protection depended on readiness rather than dominance. England invested further in ship design and training. Drake's experience informed these investments. His emphasis on preparedness shaped policy indirectly. The balance of power did not flip instantly. Instead, it adjusted incrementally. Spain retained significant resources. However, the perception of inevitability changed. Evidence indicates confidence in absolute naval dominance weakened. This psychological shift mattered. It encouraged reassessment rather than repetition. The consequences also affected leadership structures. Commanders with adaptive experience gained influence. Rigid doctrine lost appeal. Drake's methods became case studies. According to later analyses, his campaigns illustrated effective use of limited resources. This influenced future planning. The aftermath also highlighted importance of communication. England maintained improved signaling systems. These systems reduced confusion during patrols. Patrols replaced emergency mobilization. This transition reflected confidence in deterrence. Deterrence relied on readiness rather than confrontation. Drake's legacy aligned with this principle. He advocated preparedness as continuous process. The consequences, therefore, included institutional learning. Learning persisted beyond individuals. While Drake's personal reputation grew, systemic changes mattered more. Evidence suggests England avoided complacency. Leaders recognized that conditions, not luck, shaped outcomes. This recognition reinforced training emphasis. Crews practiced coordination regularly. Familiarity with procedures increased efficiency. Efficiency reduced response time. Reduced response time preserved advantage. This cause and effect sustained stability. The consequences also influenced diplomatic posture. England engaged cautiously with external powers. Confidence did not translate to provocation. Instead, it supported negotiation from a position of readiness. according to correspondence. This posture reduced immediate conflict risk. The Armada episode thus altered behavior on multiple levels. It reshaped naval doctrine. It adjusted economic expectations. It influenced leadership selection. Drake's contribution lay in demonstrating application of experience under pressure. His actions validated preparation over impulse. The aftermath confirmed this validation. Success did not breed recklessness. It reinforced discipline. This outcome aligned with Drake's approach. He did not seek dramatic escalation. He sought sustainable control. The consequences extended into future decades. England continued refining naval practices. Adaptability remained central. Larger ships were balanced with maneuverability. Command autonomy was preserved. These choices reflected lessons learned. According to historians, this period marked transition toward modern naval thinking. Drake's career intersected with this transition meaningfully. The consequences therefore transcend a single event. They represent a shift in how power at sea was understood. Scale alone was insufficient. Coordination and timing proved decisive. This understanding spread gradually. Other powers observed and adjusted. The aftermath did not eliminate conflict. It changed its nature. Engagements became more dynamic. Planning emphasized flexibility. Drake's influence persisted through example. His decisions during pressure informed future doctrine. The consequences also affected public perception. Confidence in naval capability increased. This confidence supported long-term investment. Investment improved infrastructure. Improved infrastructure sustained readiness. This reinforcing cycle contributed to stability. The Armada's challenge thus produced lasting change. It tested assumptions and rewarded adaptability. Drake's role illustrated how experience translates into strategic impact. The aftermath confirms that outcomes depend on systems, not moments. The chapter closes with a clear effect. England emerged more prepared, not invincible. Preparedness proved sufficient. The balance shifted because understanding deepened. Drake's legacy rests in that understanding.
This chapter analyzes the immediate consequences of Armada's withdrawal within the Tudor naval system. Drawing on post-campaign assessments, it shows how England consolidated experience into doctrine, ship design, and command practice. The emphasis is on institutional learning and stability rather than triumph or myth-making.
Chapter 7 Legacy of Method and Meaning reflects on how the events reshaped historical interpretation without drifting into myth or exaggeration. After the immediate consequences settled, observers began reassessing what truly mattered in the outcome. Evidence indicates the defining factor was not force, but method. Drake's approach highlighted how preparation converts uncertainty into advantage. This lesson endured beyond his lifetime. According to later naval assessments, his actions illustrated a transferable framework. That framework emphasized awareness, restraint, and timing. These qualities proved relevant across changing conditions. The legacy therefore rests on process rather than personality. Drake became associated with adaptability, not spectacle. This distinction matters for understanding influence. Influence spreads through example when principles are clear. The Armada episode clarified those principles. Larger forces could be offset through coordination and patience. This understanding informed future planning. Naval leaders studied outcomes carefully. They focused on decision sequences rather than single moments. This analytical shift marked progress in strategic thinking. Drake's legacy also shaped how exploration and defense were linked. Voyages were no longer seen as separate from security. Knowledge gained abroad strengthened readiness at home. This integration altered investment priorities. Training emphasized navigation and communication equally. According to records, this balance improved effectiveness. The legacy further extended to leadership culture. Commanders were expected to think independently within shared goals. This expectation reduced bottlenecks during operations. Reduced bottlenecks improved response time. Response time influenced survivability. Survivability sustained capability. This chain reflects lasting impact. Drake's career demonstrated how experience accumulates value. Each lesson added resilience. Resilience translated into confidence, grounded in reality. This confidence avoided overreach. Overreach often undermines success. The legacy thus includes restraint as virtue. Historical narratives sometimes overlook this aspect. Yet evidence suggests restraint preserved gains. Drake's example countered assumptions about aggression. Aggression was not always efficient. Efficiency emerged from alignment with conditions. This alignment required humility toward environment. The sea dictated terms consistently. Drake respected that reality. His legacy reinforced respect over dominance. This perspective influenced maritime culture. Sailors learned to observe before acting. Observation reduced error. Reduced error preserved resources. Resources sustained operations. The legacy also affected how success was measured. Victory became defined by stability achieved rather than foes defeated. This definition supported long-term planning. It also reduced pressure for immediate confrontation. According to analysts, this mindset contributed to sustained maritime presence. The Armada's failure became case study rather than legend. Case studies invite analysis. Legends invite repetition without understanding. Drake's story encouraged the former. This distinction protected against complacency. Complacency can reverse advantage quickly. The legacy also influenced how history recorded events. Chroniclers began noting logistics and timing. These details enriched understanding. They moved narratives beyond surface description. Drake's actions provided material for such depth. His decisions illustrated interconnected systems. Systems thinking became more prominent. This approach remains relevant. The legacy extends into modern interpretation. Historians emphasize process and structure. Drake's example supports this emphasis. He demonstrated that outcomes emerge from cumulative choices. Each choice builds context for the next. This understanding demystifies success. It makes learning possible. Learning prevents repetition of mistakes. The legacy, therefore, includes educational value. Naval academies referenced such campaigns. They highlighted adaptability and communication. These lessons transcended era. While technology changed, principles endured. Drake's legacy also shaped national confidence carefully. Confidence rooted in capability avoids arrogance. According to historical accounts, this balance benefited stability. England invested without provoking unnecessary conflict. This posture reduced strain. Reduced strain preserved focus. Focus improved readiness. The legacy thus influenced policy tone. It encouraged measured assertion. Drake's career symbolized this approach, not through claims, but through results. His name became associated with competence. Competence commands respect quietly. This quiet respect shaped alliances and deterrence. The legacy further underscores importance of learning from challenge. The Armada posed a severe test. The response produced growth. Growth emerged from reflection and adjustment. Drake exemplified this cycle. He did not cling to fixed doctrine. He adapted based on evidence. This habit defines effective leadership. The legacy, therefore, extends beyond maritime history. It offers insight into decision-making under pressure. It shows that preparation reduces surprise. Reduced surprise increases control. Control improves outcomes. This sequence remains applicable widely. Drake's story illustrates this without dramatization. The chapter closes by recognizing continuity. The events did not end history. They informed it. Drake's legacy lives in methods adopted and refined. His impact lies in how thinking changed. Thinking shapes action. Action shapes outcomes. That is the enduring lesson.
This chapter evaluates the longer Tudor legacy of the Armada campaign by examining how method replaced spectacle in naval thinking. Using later analysis and correspondence, it shows how adaptability, restraint, and coordination became enduring principles within Tudor maritime strategy, shaping leadership expectations beyond a single event.
Chapter 8 Summary of Impact and Historical Direction brings the narrative forward by connecting outcomes to long-term change without repeating earlier detail. The campaign surrounding the Armada altered how power at sea was understood across Europe. Evidence indicates that success no longer depended solely on scale or tradition. Instead, effectiveness came from coordination, timing, and environmental awareness. Drake's role illustrated this shift clearly. His leadership demonstrated that preparation could offset disadvantage. This understanding influenced future naval planning. England continued refining its approach incrementally. Ship design balanced speed and durability. Command structures encouraged initiative within shared intent. According to records, these changes improved responsiveness. Responsiveness mattered as maritime competition evolved. The summary of impact focuses on direction rather than celebration. England did not become unchallenged. It became more capable of managing uncertainty. This capability shaped future encounters. The Armada episode served as reference point. Leaders evaluated decisions against its lessons. They asked whether plans allowed adaptation. They assessed whether communication could function under strain. Drake's actions provided practical examples. These examples grounded theory in experience. The historical direction shifted toward systems thinking. Systems thinking recognizes interdependence. Ships, crews, weather, and information form networks. Drake operated within such networks intuitively. His success validated this approach. As a result, naval thought matured. According to experts, this maturation influenced maritime balance gradually. Other powers observed and adjusted. Rigid formations softened. Emphasis on logistics increased. The summary highlights that change was not immediate. It unfolded over years. The Armada's outcome acted as catalyst. It accelerated reconsideration of assumptions. Drake's contribution lay in demonstrating viable alternatives. He did not invent new elements. He combined existing practices effectively. This synthesis mattered. It showed that innovation often emerges from recombination. The historical direction, therefore, reflects evolution rather than revolution. England's Navy evolved toward flexibility. Flexibility allowed response to diverse challenges. This adaptability proved valuable as trade expanded. Expanded trade increased exposure. Exposure required protection. Protection relied on readiness. Readiness became institutional priority. Drake's career reinforced this priority. The summary also notes cultural impact. Confidence in maritime capability influenced national outlook. This confidence supported investment in exploration and defense. Investment improved infrastructure. Infrastructure sustained presence. Presence influenced diplomacy. Diplomatic posture benefited from credible capability. This chain reflects broader impact. The Armada episode thus affected more than battle outcomes. It shaped how England engaged the world. Drake's leadership style aligned with this engagement. He favored informed action over display. This preference resonated with emerging values. According to historical commentary, effectiveness gained prestige over grandeur. The summary underscores that Drake's legacy fits this trend. He became symbol of practical leadership. Practical leadership prioritizes results grounded in reality. Reality at sea demands respect for conditions. Drake's actions embodied that respect. The historical direction also involved learning mechanisms. After the campaign, analysis increased. Logs and reports were studied. Patterns were identified. This analytical culture strengthened decision-making. Drake's detailed records contributed to this practice. They provided material for reflection. Reflection informed training. Training improved outcomes. The summary emphasizes continuity. Each phase built on previous learning. There was no abrupt break. Instead, there was accumulation. Accumulation of knowledge shapes capability. Drake's life illustrates this accumulation vividly. His experiences connected exploration to defense seamlessly. This connection influenced future roles. Commanders were valued for breadth of experience. Narrow specialization became less favored. According to assessments, this broadened competence, enhanced resilience. The summary also clarifies limits. The Armada's failure did not end rivalry. It adjusted dynamics. Challenges persisted. Adaptability remained necessary. Drake's example warned against complacency. His restraint after success reinforced this warning. The historical direction therefore balanced confidence with caution. This balance preserved gains. Preserving gains mattered more than claiming dominance. Drake's leadership supported this perspective. He understood that control requires maintenance. Maintenance demands discipline. Discipline sustains advantage. The summary brings focus back to cause and effect. Preparation led to adaptability. Adaptability led to control. Control altered outcomes. Outcomes influence perception. Perception guided future choices. This chain defines historical movement. Drake's role fits within it naturally. He was neither isolated nor accidental. He was product and contributor. The summary avoids myth by emphasizing structure. It recognizes individuals matter within systems. Drake mattered because he aligned with evolving needs. His actions reinforced emerging doctrine. That doctrine shaped history incrementally. The chapter closes by positioning the Armada episode as turning point in understanding, not endpoint in conflict. The direction set then continued forward. Drake's legacy remains embedded in that direction.
This chapter summarizes how the Armada campaign redirected Tudor naval policy over the long term. It connects documented outcomes to evolving doctrine, emphasizing preparedness, coordination, and environmental awareness. The focus is on historical direction rather than repetition, showing how Tudor naval thinking matured through evidence-based reflection and sustained application.
Chapter 9 Reflection and Call Forward concludes the investigation by connecting historical understanding to ongoing interpretation without repetition or exaggeration. The story of Sir Francis Drake and the Armada ultimately demonstrates how outcomes emerge from accumulated decisions rather than isolated acts. Evidence indicates that England's response succeeded because it aligned leadership, experience, and conditions effectively. Drake's role exemplified this alignment. He neither relied on chance nor sought spectacle. Instead, he applied lessons learned over time. This approach offers a broader reflection on how history unfolds. Large events often appear sudden in hindsight. In reality, they are shaped by preparation and restraint. Drake's career illustrates this pattern clearly. His actions during the campaign reflected habits formed long before confrontation. This continuity reinforces the value of experience. Experience reduces uncertainty by providing reference points. Reference points guide judgment under pressure. Judgment influences outcomes incrementally. This reflection matters because it challenges simplified narratives. History is often reduced to moments of drama. Such reduction obscures process. The Armada episode gains clarity when viewed as progression. Each stage led logically to the next. Drake's leadership fit within that logic. He did not alter conditions single-handedly. He responded to them effectively. This distinction preserves accuracy. According to historians, understanding process prevents distortion. Distortion limits learning. Learning requires nuance. The reflection also emphasizes accountability. Decisions carried consequences at every stage. Drake accepted responsibility for outcomes. This acceptance reinforced trust. Trust enabled coordination. Coordination amplified effectiveness. This chain reinforces leadership principles applicable beyond context. The narrative invites viewers to consider how preparation shapes resilience. Resilience is not dramatic. It is built quietly. Drake's calm during crisis symbolized this quality. Calm does not eliminate risk. It manages it. Managing risk determines survival. Survival allows continuity. Continuity enables growth. This sequence underpins historical change. The reflection further highlights the importance of adaptability. Fixed plans falter when conditions shift. Drake's willingness to adjust preserved advantage. According to evidence, this adaptability was decisive. The Armada's rigidity limited response. This contrast illustrates why method matters. Method outlasts circumstance. Circumstance changes constantly. Drake's method remained effective because it was flexible. The reflection also addresses legacy responsibly. Drake's influence persisted not through myth, but through practice. Practices were adopted, refined, and institutionalized. This institutionalization mattered more than reputation. It ensured lessons endured beyond individuals. The reflection, therefore, resists hero worship. It acknowledges contribution within system. Drake's success depended on crews, commanders, and shared understanding. Shared understanding enabled unified action. Unified action overcame imbalance. This perspective maintains balance and accuracy. The reflection also invites engagement. History remains open to interpretation. New evidence refines understanding. Viewers are encouraged to consider how narratives form. What details are emphasized? What processes are overlooked? The Armada story offers opportunity for such examination. It demonstrates how focusing on process enriches insight. The reflection connects past to present interpretation. Modern analysis benefits from this approach. It avoids sensationalism. It values context. Context clarifies cause and effect. The narrative closes by encouraging continued exploration of historical leadership. Drake's story is one example among many. Other figures faced similar constraints differently. Comparing approaches deepens understanding. Viewers are invited to reflect on these differences. How did experience shape decisions? How did environment influence outcomes? These questions extend learning. The call forward emphasizes thoughtful engagement. Viewers are encouraged to share perspectives grounded in evidence. Discussion enriches collective understanding. Understanding history requires dialogue. Dialogue reveals complexity. Complexity prevents oversimplification. This aligns with responsible storytelling. The reflection also suggests further viewing. Exploring other maritime leaders reveals patterns and contrasts. Such exploration builds broader context. Context enhances appreciation of change over time. The call forward frames history as ongoing inquiry. Inquiry sustains relevance. Drake's legacy remains relevant because it illustrates enduring principles. Preparation, adaptability, and restraint continue to matter. These principles transcend era. The reflection concludes by reaffirming narrative intent. The documentary aimed to investigate, not dramatize. It sought clarity over spectacle. Drake's story supports this aim. His actions speak through evidence. The final takeaway is measured. History rewards those who learn from conditions rather than resist them. Drake exemplified this approach. His role in the Armada episode illustrates how understanding transforms challenge into opportunity. The call forward invites viewers to continue examining history with the same care.
This concluding chapter reflects on Tudor Armada experience as a case study in historical interpretation. It emphasizes how evidence-based analysis clarifies leadership, preparation, and decision-making under pressure. The focus remains on learning from documented process, encouraging thoughtful engagement with Tudor history beyond simplified narratives.
The Armada campaign reshaped naval thinking. Preparation proved more effective than scale. Leadership discipline preserved resources. Adaptability influenced long-term outcomes. Drake's methods informed future planning. The event marked a strategic transition. Historical evidence supports this interpretation. Its relevance extends beyond its century. Subscribe for more verified documentaries. Comment with your analysis and watch the full documentary.